निर्विकल्पं निरीहं चिदाकाशमाकाशवासं भजेऽहं निराकारमोङ्कारमूलं तुरीयं गिराज्ञानगोते तमीशं गिरीशं करालं महाकालकालं कृपालं गुणागारसंसारपारं नतोऽहं तुषाराद्रिशङ्काशगौरं गम्भीरं मनोभूतकोटे प्रभाश्रीशरीरं स्फुरन्मौलिकल्लोलिनी चारुगङ्गा लसद्भालबालेन्दुकण्ठे भुजङ्गा चलत्कुण्डलं भ्रूसुनेत्रं विशालं प्रसन्नाननं नीलकण्ठं दयालं मृगाधीशचर्माम्बरं मुण्डमालं प्रियं शङ्करं सर्वनाथं भजामि प्रचण्डं प्रकृष्टं प्रगल्भं परेशामखण्डमजं भानुकोटिप्रकाशं त्रयशोलनिर्मूलनं शोलपाणिं भजेऽहं भवानीपतिं भावगम्यं कलातीतकल्याणकल्पान्तकारी सदा सज्जनानन्ददाता पुरारे चिदानन्दसन्दोहमोहापहारी प्रसीद प्रसीद प्रभो मन्मथारे न यावत् उमानाथ पादारविन्दं भजन्ति लोके परिवानराणां न तावत् सुखं शान्ति सन्तापनाशं प्रसीद प्रभो सर्वभूतादिवासं न जानामि योगं जपं नेव पूजा न तोऽहं सदा सर्वदा सम्भुतव्यं जराजन्म दुःखो गतातप्यमानं प्रभो पाहि आपन्नमामि शम्भो नमामि समीशाननिर्वाणरूपं विभुं व्यापकं ब्रह्मवेदस्वरूपं विभुं व्यापकं ब्रह्मवेदस्वरूपं विभुं व्यापकं ब्रह्मवेदस्वरूपम् श्रीरामचन्द्र कृपालु भज मन हरण भव भयदारुणं नवकञ्जलोचन कञ्जमुखकर कञ्जपद कञ्जारुणं श्रीराम जय राम श्रीराम जय राम कंदर्प अगणित अमित छवि नव नील नीरद सुंदरम पटपीतमानहु तडित रुचि सुचिनो मे जनक सुतावरम श्रीराम जय राम श्रीराम जय राम भजु दीनबन्धु दिनेश दानव दैत्यवंशनिकन्दनं रघुनन्द आनन्द कन्द कौशलचन्द्र दशरथनन्दनं श्रीराम जय राम श्रीराम जय राम शिरमुकुट कुण्डल तिलक चारु उदारु अङ्गविभूषणम् आजानुभुज सर चापधर संग्राम जित खर दूषणम् श्रीराम जय राम श्रीराम जय राम सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः सर्वे सन्तु निरामयाः सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत् ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः
Welcome to Satsang. As always, we'll start with a question or two that have come in advance and then open it up to any questions that anyone here may have. I am really, second really is in caps, over my ego. He is the guest that never leaves, the mosquito that keeps buzzing around in my ear, and the heartburn that ruins a good thali dinner. Why do we have to be friends? So, in all of the spiritual literature, of all of the different traditions that I know of, that I've read from so many different lineages and religions and cultures, there's several things that are really common to them. And one of them is the ego. The mind. And how that ego mind gets into our hearts, into our lives, making itself literally that uninvited guest that never leaves, that mosquito in your ear. So it's not just present, but it's always hitting you. The dilemma arises in what we do about it. And there's a lot of traditions in which you hear and you read things about annihilating the ego. So that word is used a lot, annihilating the ego, or, conquering the ego, all of these very warlike terms. And on the one hand, that's the goal, is to be the victor over the ego. If you've got the you who knows, the you who's deeply grounded and connected, the true you. And then you've got this false self, the ego. The ego, by the way, as long as we're talking about it, the ego is not as simple as just our arrogance. A lot of people think of ego just as arrogance. Oh, you think you're so great, you have a lot of ego. Okay, so that's one aspect of the ego. One reflection of the ego is people who think they're so great. But people who walk around as the victim all the time have just as much of an ego problem. The same ego tells me I'm the best or I'm the worst. The same ego tells me I'm always right. I'm the smartest one. I'm the one who knows. As the same ego that says, oh God, I'm so stupid. I'm so embarrassed. I make such a fool of myself. Nobody likes me. That's also ego. The ego is anything that sticks you in a box, closes the box and puts a label on it and writes, it's like you go to the airport and you have a box and they say, all right, ma'am, what's in the box? And they stick a label. Is it fragile? Is it not fragile? And send it on the way. The ego is what does that to you. The ego sticks you in a box. And sometimes it's a box that says, I'm so great, so smart, I'm the best, I'm the smartest, I'm the one who knows everything. But sometimes it's a box that's, I'm the worst, I'm useless, I'm worthless, I'm a horrible person. That's also ego. The ego is the one who tells you a story about yourself. Nothing good ever happens to me. That's ego. I'm always the one who does all the work. I'm always the one who puts myself out. I'm the nicest, I'm the most giving, and I'm always the one who gets the short end of the stick. It's ego. Anytime you hear a voice in your head telling you a story about yourself, that's ego. And it's important to know that because for those of us where the story is not, oh, you're the best, we might think that maybe we don't have such a problem with our ego. But if you've got any preconceived, boxed notion of who you are, that's ego. And it gets even really deep. If, for example, let's say that in your life something bad has happened to you. You were abused. Your parents had a horrible divorce. You suffered in some very traumatic sort of way. And now, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 60 years later, you are moving through the world identified as the one who was the victim of the abuse, the divorce, the trauma, the suffering. That's ego. So the ego actually is quite versatile. It's able to fit almost an infinite number of containers, to mask itself as an infinite number of things. A lot of the drama that we go through in our life, oh my God, this and that, is ego. It's the story that the ego is telling us. I'll give you a personal story to illustrate what I mean by that. So when I had been in India for maybe about a month, Pujya Swamiji was approached by the head of an organization that was financially managing 10 or 11 schools in a big slum area. And he came to Pujya Swamiji and said, we've been running these schools in the slums, but we no longer have money to do it. And if you would adopt the schools, that would be really wonderful. And they're not in good shape. I mean, A, they're in slums, but B, the schools themselves, this one doesn't have a roof and it's the rainy season. This one has no flooring. This one has no electricity, and, you know. But every day, kids show up. And every day a teacher shows up. And so we really don't want to close them down if you can come and maybe adopt them. So he said, sure, let me come and see them. And he said to me, do you want to come? Sure, of course. Those of you who were here last night knew that I never said no to anything. Whatever it was an adventure. Yes, I wanted to be there. Yes, I was up for it. So we went, spent the whole day. And the scenes were like if you've seen movies of the Indian slums. That's what these slums were. Absolute quintessential slums. People living in, you know, tents that were made out of a little bit of tin and some fabric and a few sheets of plywood and, you know, string and whatever. Cooking outside on gas while a goat lies right there, you know, exactly movie quintessential slums. But the children were so beautiful. 23 years later, I cry every time I talk about them. And we spend the whole day there, and we get back in the night, back to our ashram in Delhi, and I'm crying, I'm sobbing. I just spent my whole day seeing now hundreds of kids living in squalor, but with such devotion to their country, to their education. I mean, you walk up to one of these little slum schools that's nothing, but outside it are all these, you know, falling apart plastic little chappals, slippers, because to the kids, this is a holy place. Right? I mean, to me, it looks like a shack. To them, it's a temple. It's a holy place. So, of course, their shoes come off before they go inside. So we come back. I'm sobbing. And I say, I can't eat dinner. Pujya Swamiji says, why can't you eat dinner? I said, I can't eat dinner because these kids, my God, they don't have anything. How can I eat if they don't have anything? And I'm sobbing and sobbing. And he looks at me, and very matter-of-factly he says, are your tears helping them? No, of course they're not, but oh my God, those kids, and you know, my story. And he looks at me and he says, your tears are only helping yourself. He said, you feel like such a compassionate person that you can't eat your food because those poor children don't have anything. He said, but you're not actually helping them. He said, if you actually want to do something other than just be in your own drama, eat your dinner, go to sleep, get up at 5 o'clock tomorrow morning and figure out where you're going to raise the money so that we can sponsor all of these schools. And for me, that was my very first teaching of another face of ego. Here I was, not feeling great. Actually, I was feeling miserable. I was feeling so undeserving of everything we had. But the ego wears the mask also of our drama. Here I am sobbing with what I thought was compassion. It's a story. It's drama. I'm the good, compassionate one who can't sleep because these kids don't have anything, and I'm going to stay awake all night sobbing, feeling really good about myself that I'm sobbing, that I'm so compassionate. I'll write letters home, you know, telling my family and friends about those poor children. I'll cry on the letters and I'll say, you know, pardon the wet marks, I'm crying. And that's the drama. But you can see where it doesn't actually get you anywhere. It doesn't actually help them. It's not actually rooted in any sort of reality of my oneness with them that would impel me to act. So I share the story because it helps to have some ideas of what the faces of the ego can look like. And so for me, on a very personal level, on my spiritual journey, path, unfolding, river of grace, the analogies of annihilation and conquering have never been analogies that worked very well for me. Because the ego always felt to me so much like a part of how I identified, that even though I knew it was wrong, in the big scheme of truth and untruth, who I am, the truth is soul, spirit, consciousness, divinity. The wrong, the untruth, is the whole story of the ego. Born here, that education, this childhood story, this, that, came to India like this, that story. But that was all ego story. But it felt so deeply interwoven with how I identified that every time I tried to annihilate the ego, it felt like I was ripping myself out of myself. In fact, I remember saying to Pujya Swamiji one day, tears streaming down my face, they never told me that when you annihilate my ego, you're going to take my heart with it. And that really is what it feels like sometimes, as the ego starts to lessen its hold on you. But for me, what has worked, hence the fact that I offer it here to you, is rather than the imagery or the thoughts of conquering and annihilation and fighting, and I'm going to ground you into the ground, you bad ego, bad, bad, bad. Well, it's all you. And so at the end of the day, you're going to bed with the loser of that fight. You don't get to say to your ego, all right, you get the couch tonight. Or, all right, fine, keep the bed, I'll take the couch. You're in bed with the loser. There's no way to say that's your side of the bed, this is my side of the bed. Truth on the right, ego on the left. And so what I found was, no matter how many battles I engaged in with my ego, at the end of the day, when I lay down to sleep, well, the battleground was my heart. And so I shifted how I started thinking about it. And for me, it's been really a path of expansion. So you've got this unwanted house guest, as we circle back to the actual question. The ego is this uninvited, unwanted house guest. All right, build yourself a bigger house. Rather than getting into a war with somebody who isn't going to walk out your front door, but instead your living room is bloody, your kitchen is bloody. The living room and kitchen you have to live in. Well, imagine that you had the ability, that you had unlimited resources. Just build your house bigger so that the unwanted house guest has taken over your living room. Fine. Build another one. Build a penthouse. Build a home that is so big that the presence of an unwanted guest in one of the rooms isn't something that disturbs your sleep. You're able to coexist because the space has enlarged. And on a spiritual level, we do have unlimited resources. You may not have unlimited money to actually build a physical house bigger, but we do have unlimited spiritual resources because the truth of who we are is infinite. The core of who we are, when we say soul, spirit, consciousness, divinity, well, these are borderless words. I'm not 5'3" soul. I'm not 120 pounds worth of soul. Those are my bones and muscles, and the Soul doesn't have a height and a weight. Soul is infinite. Spirit is infinite. That's why love is infinite. And that's why when we have experiences in which we feel like we expand, experiences of being in love, with a human being, with a sunset, with the stars in the sky, with a tree, with divinity. When we have experiences of even physically being in the ocean, lying down and looking at the stars in the sky, experiences that take us from the physical into the spiritual experience of expansion. Why does that feel so good? Because it takes us into the truth of who we are, which is boundless. It's taking us back to source. So you take water to the top of the tallest building, it comes down. The source of water, the core truth of water is ocean. Fire rises up. Dig a hole 300 feet in the ground, light a fire, it's going to go up. Source of fire is sun. It's always returning to its source. Our source is infinity, boundless. Soul, spirit, consciousness, love, truth. And so every experience that we have that puts us in touch with that feels so good because it is taking us back to the truth of who we are. So, when the ego feels like it's taking over too much of your very small house, expand your awareness of self. Keep expanding. Keep expanding. Such that, yeah, all right, there's this thing called ego, and it's got its own idea of who I am. It's the storyteller. Every palace used to have a jester, right? And the jester would come out in its costumes and give its song and dance drama. But the jester didn't run the palace. No king ever took the court jester and said, I have an idea, you run the show. But he coexisted, all right. So the ego's like that. It's the song and dance storyteller. The drama queen. Rather than thinking about annihilating it, because here's the dilemma. When your mind says, all right, now I'm going to annihilate my ego, guess who's eavesdropping? The ego. Right? I mean, it's all there in your mind. So the very part you're trying to annihilate is all up on its guard, is all defensive. It knows the army's against it. And it now does everything it possibly can to prevent its own annihilation naturally. Ever try to just kill an ant or a mosquito? I mean, nothing wants to die. The ant runs away, the mosquito flies away. Nothing wants to die, let alone our very well-developed egos. So don't start telling your mind, I'm going to annihilate him. Just expand the sense of self. Keep going, keep going, keep going, keep going. Yeah, he's over there. It's all right. There's enough rooms in this house for the ego to occupy one of them. Just don't coronate him and stick him on the throne. Don't hand him the ATM card. Right? I mean, you don't want to put the ego in charge. But you don't need to bludgeon it. Because remember, it formed as part of a very natural process, in many ways actually for our own good, at a time in our life when that aspect was needed to protect us. So it's not like an enemy virus that you picked up with bad water or something. It's you. It's just not the fullness of you. So expand your identity of self, expand how you think of self. Recognize that there's a room occupied by the ego, that's all right. Just make sure that he doesn't get the keys to the car, doesn't take over the throne, doesn't get the ATM card, and just kind of is being his drama queen over in his corner, playing his story. It only becomes a problem when you hand him the keys. So that for me is what has been a much more successful, personally way of dealing with my own ego. And it's made my days and my nights much more peaceful because it has stopped making my heart feel like a battleground against a piece of myself. And when you see it coming, when it's out of its room, starts running through the rest of the house, you acknowledge it, but don't pay too much attention. Don't give it what it wants, which is attention. The court jester only wants to put on a show if there's an audience. If no one's paying any attention, it's not going to do its drama so much. So don't try to bludgeon it, but also don't feed it with your attention. Just acknowledge it. All right. Nice to see you. Haven't seen you in a while. Sorry I don't have more time to stay today, and you just go on about whatever you were doing or thinking without allowing the ego to hijack your attention. Before taking any of the other questions in advance, I'm happy to open it up if there are any questions here that anyone has.
You said the other side of the ego, that if I feel that I am ignorant, so that is surrendering to the God. If I feel that I am not able, or I am not strong enough, or I can't do anything without His support, then that is surrender. So whether the ego should be surrendered or should be kept in one room.
Yes. Okay, great question. There's two different ways of realizing I don't know anything. Two ways of realizing I don't know anything. One way, as we've been discussing, is the ego drama. The ego side of I don't know anything is the side that says, oh, God, I'm so stupid. I cannot believe I said that. I'm so embarrassed. I'm such an idiot. I'm so humiliated. Everybody must think that I'm so stupid. How am I going to show my face in public again? Oh my God, I cannot believe what I did. Oh God, that's the ego of I don't know anything. The spiritual surrender of I don't know anything. The true aspect of I don't know anything looks something like, oh God, you are the creator. You have put me here. I'm full of ignorance. I'm full of darkness. I cannot see clearly. I have this ego. I have these desires. I have this ignorance. Oh God, you guide my life. You show me the way. You give me vision. You run my show. I'm making a mess of it. I surrender to you. I take my ego that says, I know who I am. I know what's smart. I know what's stupid. I take all of it and I surrender it to you. You open my eyes. Show me the path. Show me the truth. Let me be a tool in your hands. That's the spiritual side of surrendering. They both have an aspect of, I don't know anything, I am nothing. But one of them is a drama. Because if you go back to the first situation, it was catalyzed by me saying or doing something that my ego thought came off in a really embarrassing way. I said something, I did something that was stupid. But imagine that instead of saying or doing something I thought was stupid, I said or did something that I thought was smart. Well, I could have come out of that situation on the exact other side, saying, oh, that was so smart. That was so great. God, did you see the way everybody looked at me? Nobody could say anything. Chup ho gaya sab. That's the ego. They're both drama. I said one thing that made people go, wow, 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 kya baat hai. I walk away feeling I'm so great. I say something different. People look at me like, kya samajhte apne aap ko? Then I feel very bad, very embarrassed. Both ways it's drama. Both ways it's based only on ijat, only on my reputation, only on my ego, how people respond. Do they think I'm smart? Do they think I'm stupid? Am I embarrassed? Am I proud? It's a false sense of self that's based on the role that I'm playing and how people are responding to it. The spiritual way is the awareness that I don't even know who I am. Sometimes I play this role, sometimes I play that role, sometimes, hey Bhagwan, I don't know anything. I know what I'm not. I know I'm not my body, I know I'm not my clothes, I know I'm not my role, I know I'm not my ego, but who am I, God? Show me. Come to me. Guide my life. Show me the light. That's the real sense of I don't know anything. Because that's not based on someone, even if someone overheard me saying that and came to me and said, Hare, what are you saying? You're so smart. Still I would know, no. That's not what I'm talking about. Yes, I may have triple PhDs in, everything there is on earth. But I know. I still don't really know anything. That's the deep awareness. The other is the drama. If in the other case somebody came and said, oh God, you're so smart, I'd be like, yeah, bilkul. Drama. Ego story. Whereas the other way is the pure surrender. And you feel it differently inside. When you're in the ego, it feels like knots. The ego feels very contracted. And so think for a moment about being very embarrassed. Like if you close your eyes for a moment And imagine a situation where you said or you did something that was just so embarrassing and you couldn't believe you did it and you were so embarrassed in front of people around you. Okay. You see how in that moment, do you have a sense inside of going, oh, like that, right? There's this thing inside that just makes us kind of want to crawl into a ball and, get under the couch. It literally contracts you inside. Your heart contracts, your stomach contracts. Real surrender is actually a letting go. Because it's an awareness, mera mein kuch bhi nahi hai. But there's not a sense of contraction in it. There's a sense of letting go in it. It's the way we bow. Well, there's a flow in a bow, not a contraction in a bow. So when you find yourself all contracted, it's the ego. When you find there's this open flow, that's a way of knowing that you're in a place of truth.
Thank you.
Of course. Thank you. Yes.
When you talk of Srimad Bhagavatam, in Canto 5 where Lord talks of creation, he talks, in the sequence, talks about the ego. And when you go to the 24 tattvas that Kapil Dev talks about, that's also one of the
Yes.
tattva. So how do we understand ego as that tattva?
So the ego is that aspect of ourselves that helps us actually move through the world. So the reason when egos are developed, if you study developmental psychology, for example, which is the world that I come from, you learn about how children develop, different neurological aspects and milestones of development. And one aspect of development is the development of the ego. So for example, we hit a stage of what we call object permanence. So, up until a certain age, if you are sitting in front of a child and you take this and you put it behind your back, sorry, it's my mic thing, and the child cannot see it, the child thinks it's disappeared. Because there is no cognitive ability to understand that there is a world outside of me. I am the world. If I can see it, it exists. If I can't see it, it doesn't exist. You put it behind your back, the child has no idea it still exists. Once you start to develop object permanence, the child understands, it's behind your back. But play it with kids of a certain age, below a certain age, they'll never look behind your back. This thing has just vanished into thin air. You can play hide and seek with kids who will sit in the middle of the living room with their eyes closed, because if they can't see you, you can't see them. The idea that with their eyes closed, you can still see them is beyond their cognitive range of understanding. The ego develops to help us understand there is a place, I end, and the world begins. And so you have parents saying things to children like, don't take all the cookies, those are Charlie's cookies. If you want a cookie, you have to ask Charlie, because see, that's Charlie's plate of cookies, that's your plate of cookies. You cannot just reach over and take a cookie off of his plate. Do not take Charlie's truck without asking. You cannot just grab it out of his hands. He was playing with the truck. Right? As parents, this is what we teach kids. As teachers, this is what we teach in school. Ego development is the development of the awareness this is me. I've got this autonomous being. There is a place that I end and you begin. And look how powerful I am. I can keep throwing these peas off of my high chair and Mom will keep bending down and picking them up. I'm the ringmaster of this circus. Look how powerful I am. I throw it, Mom bends. I throw it, Mom bends. I throw it, Mom bends. I throw it, Mom bends, right? I'm this autonomous, powerful, separate creature from Mom who, look, I can make her bend just by throwing a pea out of my high chair. This is how the ego begins to develop. And as it develops, it also develops with a sense of who I am. It's helpful. It's helpful in socializing in the world. This is where you get manners. It's where you get politeness, where you get culture. All of that is part of ego. Ye theek nahi hai. Ye theek hai. If you didn't have an ego, you couldn't understand kya theek hai, kya theek nahi hai. Why can't I take his cookies? Wo to sab mera hai. No place I end and Charlie begins. They're all my cookies. It's my truck. Why not? We're one. No difference. So the ego develops as this sense of my separate life. And then, of course, I've got my duty. I have my dharma. Well, if I didn't have a sense of me as separate from you, I couldn't have any idea of my duty, my dharma. All of that requires that there is this ego, because if I'm moving through the world simply as consciousness, simply as oneness with all, if there's no sense of, well, don't talk to me about my duty. How can I have a duty? I'm consciousness. I'm Brahmasmi. And that's why in an ironic way, we actually have to go through first this development of the ego before we can remove it. We have to first develop that sense of separate self in order to be able to then, again paradoxically, unlearn all of that which keeps us separate. But if I didn't first have an experience, an awareness of a separate individual life, I wouldn't embark on a spiritual path. I wouldn't have sanskaras. I wouldn't have values. I wouldn't have dharma. These are all, they require that I have a sense of ego that even says, yehi mera dharma hai. Main to main kaun hu? The main is ego. So this is where it's an important aspect of the truth, of the formation of myself, but then I have to move beyond it. I surrender it. Surrender it to God. Okay, God, you were there in the creation of it. You are the creator of it all. Help me now. Help it dissolve back so that it doesn't keep me separate from you. Yeah, wonderful. Have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your evening. And we'll see you all tomorrow. And if you have a question that we didn't have time to take tonight, if you're here tomorrow, just bring it in. But if not, or if you feel shy to ask it in public, you can get it to Sevanandaji, and he will get it for me on the paper that we take from in advance each evening.